You're listening to a Soul One podcast.
What an exciting time to be alive.
We are filming, or I should say recording, on the day of the inauguration of the American president. Is that what you're alluding to?
Yeah, did you watch any of it? Or see any
No.
highlights? Or?
I saw that Carrie Underwood song, the audio didn't work, so it was just like apparently quiet, I guess.
Yeah, it was so funny. Oh yeah, that was one of many little moments.
Was it like she sang the whole song and the whole time she sang there was no audio and everyone was just kind of looking around?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, cool. The average length of a song is like what, 3.5 minutes?
Yeah, but like 30 seconds of no noise is awkward and embarrassing.
That's
so
right.
imagine 3 minutes.
Imagine. I mean, if we sat here for 10 seconds and didn't speak, that would be awkward.
I'd die.
You know what I mean? Yeah, like it would. So, yeah, that's so funny to me.
Talk about amateur hour though. Like, wouldn't she have a headset that like 30 seconds in? Wouldn't they be like, "Oh, sorry, Carrie, they can't hear you," or like, yes. I don't know. There just seems just seems weird to me.
Typically, they'd have some kind of a backup ready to go. Like they'd have something. Now these kinds of sound issues are less and less common because we've perfected this equipment. But something went wrong. something.
They didn't turn the switch on her mic. I have no idea what happened. So that was the big thing I heard about. But
that's right. Well, I mean, we've got that going on. Obviously, the wildfires in California are still crazy.
Yes, Nicole's safe, by the way, for anyone who was interested. My best friend Nicole, who lives in LA, is safe. They were able to evacuate, so no problems there. Her apartment is still there as of this recording. And there's been some legal headlines.
There have been. Like legal and counter legal, and like I'm gonna sue you and I'm gonna sue you, and everyone's just gonna sue each other.
It's in too deep now. I've lost the plot, so to speak,
because it's so complicated. And it's one of those scenarios, and like I hate saying this in some ways, but it seems to me like both parties did things wrong, which does not in any way justify any of these actions. I'm just saying it's one of those scenarios where you look and the more you read, you go, oh, they're both toxic and horrible people.
Yeah, you both sound horrible. And did you mention who this is? What's the name of the director?
I never cared about him before, and I don't know his name. Justin Baldoni, is that his name?
He directed that weird movie that had a weird press tour.
He's some scumbag, and Blake Lively.
She's not coming out like a bed of roses either.
Disgusting. No. Don't get me wrong. They're both disgusting human beings.
And he's subpoenaing Disney now, or...
What a losing battle. Like, don't do that. Like, stick to one battlefield. Like, what are you doing going after Disney? Like, that's really foolish. Foolish.
The current, that's the, what I would say, the latest of what I've heard, which is a couple days old, maybe even like a week now old.
Yeah.
He's accusing Ryan Reynolds of basing the character of Nice Pool on him. And so... First of all, like, I haven't seen the movie, Mike, and I don't know enough about this guy to know if that's like an accurate
Taylor, it's so good. Nice Pool's hilarious. And it's so good.
Do you think it is based on him?
Well, I mean, not knowing him when I saw it, I sure didn't think of that.
Sure.
Now that I've heard some of these things, I could see it.
Right.
But also, who cares? Because, so that's a battle he's not going to win. And let me tell you why. You are protected by parody law.
Sure, yeah.
He's actually you're allowed to base characters off of people, so long as you don't use their name. Calling him Nice Pool, and even if they behaved exactly like Justin Baldoni, whatever his name is, you're not going to win that battle. You can't sue for that.
And
There's
also
no
you're
way to
going
definitively prove it.
you're going up against the mouse. The mouse is not going to let you win.
Yeah.
But
like, why would you go up against the mouse?
What I think is funnier in this whole scenario is that Ryan Reynolds is so vindictive that he would base like this like obscure tiff that his wife is having with this random director to base a that is crazy.
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
I would have done that as well.
Probably me too, because
but that's the subtle way to do it. Like I've definitely in like playwriting classes and stuff based characters on people. I
built my whole comedic. We had to in grade 11 or 12 do Lassies, and we had to like make up comedic characters, and 100% mine was a thinly veiled girl in our graduating class, and everyone knew who it was. So I mean I'm with Ryan
Taylor,
Reynolds.
That's awkward.
I'm with Ryan Reynolds, but I'm also not 16, 17 anymore. So like for a 40-year-old man.
Also, like, okay, so from both the perspectives of Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, if you were to like put yourself in their shoes, you could like understand why you want to set the record straight, because these things can like ruin a career.
Sure.
Like you can understand that. Ryan Reynolds getting involved, yeah, that's wild to me. Like, I get it. I get it's your wife, but like to me, it's like if I was him, it's like I have multi-billions of dollars. My wife has a lot of money. We're fine. Like, I'm going to stay out of this. Let the battle go. I'm going to, obviously side with my wife. But it's just like, don't even get involved. Like, don't even do that. But again, the Deadpool thing to me is meaningless. One, you can't prove it. And two, you're protected by parody law anyway. And it's really, Nice Pool's also really funny. So Taylor, he's basically, Nice Pool makes a comment about Lady Deadpool. There's all these Deadpools in this movie. It's like a multiverse thing. And he makes a comment that something like, oh, she even, you can't even tell she just had a baby. And Deadpool goes, I don't think you can say that. And Nice Pool says, it's okay, I'm a feminist. And I think that's what they're talking about.
And that's his, I think that's his persona, right?
That's
his
right.
persona is that.
And a lot of the disgusting things he did, he basically like would say to Blake Lively and other people like, oh no, like I'm a feminist. It's okay to look at these
But the main thing that, Mikey, it sounds like you might know more about the lawsuit than I do, but the main allegation, which I think like started all of this, was that he had to like lift her up in a scene in the movie, and like he has a bad back and was like, I can't lift you up again.
Herniated discs or something. Like,
yeah,
that's like a chronic issue. So Taylor, you know what's really interesting? That is one of 31 complaints.
Okay, because then Blake Lively was like, you made me feel unsafe on set.
Right.
And he's like, I have a medical condition. I wasn't calling you fat. That's like, I guess.
Because it goes way deeper than that. There are 31 of them, and I'm not going to rattle them all off. But to give you more context, other claims were that he was showing people on set the birth of a child, because there's a birthing scene in this movie. He was showing naked photos of women to people, and even after being told to stop, he was still doing it. There was a couple issues where there wasn't an intimacy coordinator on set, and so he went a bit too far in the kissing scenes. So there's like a massive list.
Okay. And that's Blake's list against him.
That's right. And then his list against her is just as long, of course. And I think the most damning piece of evidence is that there is a signed document that basically, after her initial complaints while they were filming the film, with like about 11 things that needed to be changed on set in order for her to come back to work. And that document is signed by him and the producer.
Right. So like there's a paper trail of his bad.
Well, I'm no lawyer, but that's
or at least there's a paper trail of her complaining. He might have just signed it because he's like, whatever.
And that's their claim. Their claim is we signed it to get going, but like, be careful where you're signing your signature, my man. Like that's not.
And I guess she also has receipts that he paid someone to do a smear campaign against her.
Oh yeah, that's against. She's got text messages.
I don't know.
He's got text messages. I mean, literally, the only person who's not involved in this is Hugh Jackman.
And he's just
Taylor
like, whatever.
Swift is named in this and is part of it somehow. Yeah, it's everybody but Hugh Jackman's involved. And keep in mind that this is only like a 25% of it. So yeah, I read a bunch on this. There's basically now 2 big countersuits, and Taylor, I read both of them. Like, I read through both. You can get them. You can find them online.
Sure.
And they're public documents. I've read both of them, and they're just the exact opposite of each other. Like, it's so
well, it's
down to the incidences, like, are the exact opposite.
He said, she said, right?
That's right. It's 100% that. And listen, I laugh and I make fun and I poke fun of it. These are serious things. And if it was happening, in a show I was working on or an atmosphere that I was a part of, I would take it a little more seriously.
Sure. What a nightmare.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When it comes to this, I laugh and I take it lightly because 2 millionaires barking at each other, both of them seeming like horrific people, where the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, always is going to bring.
They're both. They sound. I think it's exactly what you. I think you nailed it on the head, Mike. I think they're both probably not great people, and now they're just airing. That's the other. Why make it so public? Why not try to deal with it? But I guess the smear campaign continues, right? They're both trying to manage their public personas while like slandering the other. But wow, get your popcorn, people, because I don't think that's going to end anytime soon.
Yeah, I think this is going to continue on, and just like every other legal situation, it will go to the courts. They'll make some kind of a determination. That does not mean that the truth has been found. But again, I think, unfortunately, things are not black and white. It'd be so much easier if it was. There's much more shades of gray out there. And I think these are 2 probably pretty toxic, horrible people who should never have great things.
They should never have entered a professional relationship.
That's right. And guess what? And I think you just hit it nail on the head. Both of these people in 2 different atmospheres with 2 different groups of people, none of this might have not happened. You know what I mean? Where, whether you interpret things differently or whatever, maybe things would have been better. Some of the demands that Blake Lively was making while filming seem unreasonable to me. Many of the things that he did to her, and again, these are all he claims, she claims, but still, they seem disgusting and horrific. I don't get it. There's some text messages. I'm like, who would write this? Like, if I received this text message, I would really literally respond like, who do you think you are?
So like him texting her, or like what's
her? So both of them have text messages from each other that are put in here out of context, obviously. And yeah, they both cite text messages between each other. Yeah.
And they're both like horrendous to each other in the text messages?
No, they're both just, really, they have a lot of confidence in themselves. A lot of egos.
I might say something controversial. I'm not I don't know anything about this director. So like you said, Mike, he probably is like as bad as he seems in the court documents. I have no idea. I have no idea. But on the flip side, I know a little bit more about Blake Lively. She gives me the energy that she thinks she's a bigger star than she actually is. Is that what's represented in the?
Oh yeah, definitely. And
I'm like, sister, you're B-list. You're B-list.
I would say she's B-list. Yeah,
she's not an A-list star. She's married to an A-list star, but she's not.
I would agree with that. Yeah, and Justin Baldoni's like a D-list.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe he's done one thing really. I mean, he was in Jane the Virgin. That's it.
So again, these 2 people who think that they're like God's gift.
And I guess he has a podcast about not being like toxic masculinity and how you shouldn't be. And it's just like, it's so.
You're asking for it, bud.
Man, this guy, I went to school with so many people who were like this guy. So many people were like, just they believe they are the best man on the planet and that they do everything right. And they should shame everybody else. And I went to school with a lot of Blake Lively's too. And the fact that they clashed, this was just, it was going to happen. Something awful was going to happen. These 2 personality types should never be in the same room together, ever.
There you go.
But again, I want to be perfectly clear. Whatever is true in here, I mean, there will be things on both sides that are true. That's what's going to happen. If that is the case, and even let's say 25% of what each of them claim is true, they're both garbage human beings. That's what I'm going to say. Now, if it ends up being like, oh, one side is true over the other, I'll retract my comments. But even if 25% of what Justin Baldoni is true, trash bag, and if 25% of what he says
she did,
then Blake Lively's trash bag. So there you go.
Trash bag. I love that.
Wow, it's a bag of trash. So there you go. We talked about that for a bit. It's I don't know, Taylor. It's so. Is this the same feeling that people get in watching reality TV? Because I'm actually like 100%. Somewhat invested.
You're a little fired up.
A little bit. Like I'm a little into it, and I don't know why.
That is what 100% what watching reality TV is like. Like when you have. It's been a long time since I've watched something like The Hills or something like that. But I would say what your investment is what people feel like when they watch Real Housewives or
what's The Hills?
What?
I don't know what The Hills is.
Do you remember? Did the girls in your high school watch Laguna Beach?
No, doesn't sound familiar.
Okay, so Laguna Beach it followed high school students, which is like Laguna Beach is kind of where it was touted as like the real OC kind of. Okay. Like I think
yes.
It's a high school, and then Lauren Conrad is one of the main girls from Laguna Beach. Okay. When she graduates from high school, they follow her to LA, and that's The Hills. Okay. So that was where that was super. Those two were really big. When there was
a couple shows. There was a couple shows in high school and university that I remember, like groups of girls talking about, but maybe this was one of them. I just don't remember the name.
Probably that they were huge, and you're only a couple years older than me, so the girls in your high school were probably watching Laguna Beach, and then The Hills is what I watched in first year university.
Yeah.
And of course Jersey Shore and all that. But anyways, it's a whole industry, reality TV, and I think there's literal. Not I think I know there are podcasts just recapping reality TV show episodes in real time, talking about the characters. So that was our little snippet of it, because I'm not as juiced up as you are. Although, Mike, this is a good segue into my heavily invested feelings. So a couple weeks ago now, and I should have brought this up sooner, but there hasn't been a good opportunity to bring it up. So I saw a headline that Bret Easton Ellis, the writer of American Psycho, he has gone on record. I think he has a podcast. He has said, everything you've read about the American Psycho remake is fake news. Nothing's been confirmed. No one has approached him and given him any details, although he's already sold his IP, so I don't know why they would approach him. But he is, I would say, relatively involved in the industry because he's done screenplays and stuff. But anyways, if you believe him, he's saying that the stuff about Austin Butler, the stuff about the director being attached, the director of Call Me by Your Name is attached to the project, all fake news.
That's wild. I could have sworn it was from legitimate sources.
I'm pretty sure the studios have been like, yes, this has been greenlit. So either Bret
studio, yeah.
At least it might be a case of Bret Easton Ellis again. It has Blake Lively syndrome and thinks he's a bigger hotshot than he actually is. But that is an interesting question, because does the studio owe him a courtesy as the original author to say, yes, this project has been greenlit. We don't want your feedback whatsoever. That's interesting to me. That's an interesting, because I can imagine when he sold the screenplay or when he sold the rights to his book back in the 90s. I shouldn't say I'm sure. I don't know how that works. We should ask that to Katie next time she's on. But when an author sells the rights to their book, unless it stipulates in their contract that they want to be like a consultant, I don't think the studio owes you anything.
Yeah, and there's difference between courtesy and just, a legal obligation, right?
Right.
So they out of courtesy, they could let someone know, hey, just giving you an update, but not asking for permission, versus, needing obligation. Because that would be interesting to see what rights do an author have to be involved, because it's for Harry Potter, that author was heavily involved in the movies.
And Twilight.
And
Stephenie Meyer has she has cameos in all the movies.
Yeah. But my favorite author, Andy Weir, The Martian, which was with the movie, he had nothing to do with it. And wants nothing to do with it, and sold the rights to his other 2 books for to be made into movies, and has said, I listened to a podcast with him on it, and has said, "Oh, I don't want anything to do with it. I don't know anything about this stuff."
Yeah, I'm an author. I'm not a movie.
Yeah, I'm an author. I don't want to be involved.
So I guess I think it's interesting, and I'll have to do a little bit more digging, because once that came out, once Bret Easton Ellis made that comment, I haven't seen any other headlines about it, so I haven't gone down that rabbit hole. But I think it's interesting. Why are we supposed to trust him more than the headlines from the studios? Because it's you sold the IP. You're not a reliable source. You don't know, unless you're friends with the producer or know the director that's been tied to it. He's oh, just because it's in talks doesn't mean it's been greenlit. And it's well, again, what kind of industry insider are you that you know whether things have been greenlit or not?
Well, that's the question I would want answered. Where is this information coming from, and what do you know, and how accurate is it, or are you just speaking to speak? Sometimes people answer I don't know anything about this. This is all wrong, and they don't actually know.
That's kind of his personality, I think.
Yeah,
he's kind of a loud personality, I would say.
So that's going to be interesting then to see if it is happening or not. And
apparently, fake news.
Remind me, you have mixed feelings over this even happening, right?
Well, mostly because I always have mixed feelings about people remaking IP that I think initially is relatively flawless.
No, you were excited about Nosferatu.
Well, yes, but I've been on record saying I have a different feeling when it comes to vampires and horror in general. There's a lot more you can do. I think because when you think of Nosferatu, the lore is bigger than just a specific movie. Whereas I think of Lost Boys is a vampire movie, but I would never want to see Lost Boys remade.
Okay.
And I can't really explain why, but
that's a little. I thought I knew what you were talking. I thought I knew where your head was at until you said just that.
Yeah, and then it's I obviously have caveats to my own rules, but
yeah.
So I don't know. It's I'm willing to see vampires to me are just bigger than any particular movie, so I'm willing to see remakes, but there's still certain movies that I'm just so attached to that to me they're sacred. I don't want them to be remade. I don't think we need another Lost Boys.
Sure.
That being said, and I also don't think we need another American Psycho, but I'm always interested to see where things are gonna go. You know what I mean? What's the cast gonna be like? Who if the director is the guy, Call Me by Your Name, because I forget his name, Luca something. He's a very interesting, I think he did Challengers, Mike.
Okay.
I think that's the same director. He's a very interesting director.
Very good, very interesting director, yeah.
Austin Butler is an interesting young actor. So I'm really interested to see where he would take the story. But now it's oh, it's fake news. I don't know. That's so our reality is not real until you see a trailer for the movie. And even then it might be AI. So
but this day you don't know.
Mike, these were major, it wasn't some random AI generated article. These were leading movie.
That's right.
Magazines or whatever you want to call them.
I have a feeling it is happening, and I have a feeling it's not fake news. But again,
and it's more he's butthurt because he was kept out of the loop. But I don't know.
I think, yeah. I mean, I feel like it'll end up being something closer to that, but time will tell. In the information age we live in, you just don't know what is accurate or what it has been released, and suddenly they're no, that's not true, but then it ends up being true because they just want to try to throw you off the trail.
Very strange. Very strange. So that's one of the stories that I'll be keeping. You'll be our Blake Lively, whatever his name is, reporter, and I will keep us up to date on the American Psycho saga.
I want to say Justin Baldoni. But
Yes,
again,
that sounds right. That sounds right.
How not a star he is, because I don't really know his name. So
that's kind of how I feel about Blake Lively. I'm like, oh, you were in Gossip Girl. Okay.
Is that what she was known from? Is that
yeah, that was her big. And then she was in that really bad movie that you don't like. Or A Simple Favor.
Which one? Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah. Simple Favor. There was supposed to be a second one of those at some point in time.
Apparently it's still happening. I did see a headline that people were accusing this legal drama as the reason why there's a delay. And the filmmaker, I think the movie's done. Paul Feig or what? Feig?
Yeah, Paul Feig. Yeah.
Feig. He said, no, it has nothing to do with Blake Lively's legal cases. So I don't know. Again, who knows? We'll only know until we'll see commercials that there's been a set of commercials. I sound so old. Who's watching commercials? But we'll only know when we start hearing a release date, right?
See, until then. My kind of humor would be when someone like let's pretend for a minute something was happening for the show. Right. And you were in a lot of trouble. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, Taylor did something. She's in trouble. And a media person asked me, oh, like your podcast episode is going to be delayed because of Taylor. I would answer, who's Taylor? Like, that's my sense of humor. Right. Where you just take advantage of the opportunity to be like, who's Blake Lively?
What?
See, that would make me laugh.
I'm just making a movie. So I don't know. I don't know who that is.
So hard.
Interesting. And we're only like 4 weeks into January, so we'll see where things go. Although, none of it matters in the real world.
We just, for the last 26 minutes, nothing we've said matters other than the fact that Nicole's safe.
Yes.
That's the only thing we've said that's mattered in the past 26 minutes. We do have some movies to review.
Believe it or not.
You've got an interesting one, A Real Pain, which is up for got some awards talk for acting and writing. So I'd be interested to see what you think about that. And I have the first 2025 movie review for us, Back in Action. I'm going to review that as well.
Like I almost watched that because it's a little bit, I don't know how you feel. We said this last week. We typically spend January and February trying to catch up on the award movies, but I also feel like I'm in a little bit of a limbo period where Canadian movies are only just opening some of the really buzzed about movies, and so I'm not able to rent them yet. So when I went on Amazon and Netflix to try to find a movie to watch, I was like, well, shoot, like, I don't want to. A Real Pain was like $29 to buy it on Amazon. And I'm like, oh, like, I want to see this movie, but I don't really want to pay $29 to own the movie. And I'm still waiting for The Last Showgirl, Baby Girl, and The Brutalist. Although, Mike, did you know that The Brutalist is over 3 hours long? Like,
no.
We talk a lot about how movies are like, oh, that's 3 hours long. And then I sit down to watch the movie and it's only like 2 hours and 15 minutes. This movie truly is 3 hours. The Brutalist with Adrian Brody.
Wow.
And they're describing it as an American, like a historical epic. I really want to see that movie, but with it clocking in at over 3 hours, I do not know when I'm going to be watching it. It's opening up the screening room this weekend. But there's no way I'm sitting through a 3 hour movie in a theater. Break that up over a couple naps. So anyways, long story short, I have a short list of these movies that I want to watch. Didn't think I was going to be able to watch any, so I was going to watch your movie, the new Cameron Diaz movie, and then I thought, I'm going to go on Disney Plus. It's not an app I use very often. We really only use it to watch Bluey and What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show, but I thought, why not? And what was the first movie that popped up, Mike? A Real Pain. So that's why I ended up watching A Real Pain.
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit I ran out of time and needed to watch a movie and threw this on and watched it. I had a busy weekend because I was in callbacks for the show that I'm directing.
Yes.
So I didn't have time to go see something, and then I was like, oh, there's always something new or newish, and that's what was new. So I was like, okay.
It might be new. It just might not be good. Although Mike, my coworker, not my boss, a different coworker, told me she saw it over the weekend and she loved it. So I'm interested to hear your review. She said it's a comedy action, which is actually a genre I really like. So do you want to start with your review and then we'll go to A Real Pain?
Yeah, because my review, it's not gonna be long. Um, okay, so Back in Action, as I said, it stars Cameron Diaz, Jamie Foxx, who I didn't know this, Taylor, but I guess Jamie Foxx recently had a stroke.
He had, I think it was 2023 now. I could be wrong. My dates could be off. He almost died, but his family didn't release what he was sick with. So I didn't know it was a stroke. They kept it, I don't know. I don't want to say they kept it secret because they're completely entitled to their privacy. It might have been more of a case of them being private than a secret. But the news reports were like he almost died. So that makes sense. You know, you can die from a stroke. But he's obviously fully back now. Like
Well,
he
this
looked
is his
fine.
first movie back, and he looked fine.
Okay.
Um, so I think this is his first movie back. Yeah, I don't see anything else here that would indicate that he did anything else. So this is his first movie back. Cameron Diaz also hasn't been doing much.
But she took
Um,
she wanted to spend time with her child, I
oh, okay,
think. That was like
okay,
she wanted to do the family thing.
yeah, definitely. And I think what was interesting is that both of these actors have been in a bunch of stuff, and they have really good resumes, and if you dive into their careers you would probably say that they're pretty solid. And this movie is a cliche machine when it comes to action adventure. You probably could think of, I don't know, 15 action movies from the 90s that are similar to this. Like that's the feeling that I really got from this movie is a 90s action, bit of a thriller and comedy mixed in there, but more just of an action film.
Okay.
So the idea of this movie is that Cameron Diaz and Jamie Foxx are married, and they are CIA agents, sort of like real like deep like Jason Bourne style, like kind of
Deep
uh,
undercover.
deep undercover agents. But she ends up getting pregnant, so the two decide that they're actually going to step away from their life of mystery and raise a family. And then about, I guess it's like 15 years goes by because their daughter is like a almost a teenager or like a preteen or like an early teenager, and then they have a son as well. Basically, as you could imagine, something happens and it pulls them back in, and this movie becomes one of those like, we have to go get this thing to stop this other thing from happening. There are a couple twists and turns that like I won't spoil because it is kind of the fun of the movie, is like, where is this going? But you could probably imagine what this movie is, Taylor. They run for a bit from bad guys. There's an action sequence to a well-known song. Then you see moments of them having to still parent their children, but also then be action stars, right? Which is where like the comedy comes in.
A little bit of bickering.
Yeah, imagine James Bond having to also parent while he's doing his stuff. That's, I think,
Yeah.
the idea of what they're going for. So that's what the movie is. There's not much more to it than that. And cliches are cliches for a reason. Like sometimes they work. When done well, they work really, really well. And this movie has some moments that things work. Okay, this is what's weird about this movie. It feels like it's directed by two completely different people.
Oh, like one did the comedy and one did the action?
No, not even. It like
Oh.
even the comedy and action scenes are like split. So I'll give you an example. One fight scene is extremely well done, really well timed. You can tell they're using practical like fighting maneuvers. It's clearly both, like it's not stunt doubles, it's both of the
Right.
actors. And then you'll go to another one and it's the worst action sequence you've ever seen with stunt doubles.
Well, Netflix does often, I shouldn't say it's not a Netflix problem. I find that increasingly you'll have like two people work on a movie, like co-directors. Was this movie co-directed? I don't think it's uncommon now for this
I
genre,
didn't
like
check.
comedy.
Maybe I should take a look at that actually, because I wonder if it is. I don't remember
Just like
seeing.
you'll have like 5 people write a script now and like 2 to 3 people direct.
I don't know. I don't know if it's that dramatic. One director, Seth
Okay.
Gordon.
I've never heard of
About a
him.
million producers. One director, yeah, Seth Gordon, who directed Horrible Bosses
Oh, and
and
that's
Baywatch.
people like Horrible Bosses.
Um, And I think that kind of the comedy is good. But okay, I'll give you other examples. So sometimes they're using really solid practical effects for like a car chase or explosions, and it's like, oh, not only did you film on location, but you're using practical effects. And then the next scene will be like CGI clearly on a soundstage with a terrible CGI background.
I think that's like, a Netflix. They just kind of throw things together.
And that's what this movie felt like, a thrown together kind of messy movie with little moments of like, oh, you know, if you're into action movies, you're probably having a good time. This movie is the typical Airplane It.
That's what you were describing to me as an Airplane It.
It's 100% an Airplane. Like if we had our own dictionary and you looked up Airplane It, this is the movie that would be beside it.
You've said the name of the movie like 5 times and I've already forgotten it. Like that's
Back in Action. Back in Action.
It even sounds like this happened a couple of weeks ago. It sounds like a movie that would be like in 30 Rock. Back in Action.
It doesn't sound real. It's weird.
Did they have good chemistry? Because Cameron Diaz and I feel like Jamie Foxx, those actors are known for being kind of charismatic on screen. Oh, yeah. Like they're fun to watch. Yep. Like was fine.
That was fine. They both did a good job. They were both excellent in their roles. They were not chewing the scenery. They were not. They were clearly having a good time. They were into it. You never felt taken out of it. I don't know if this is the fault of the person playing the daughter or how the daughter was written, but I've never met a more annoying character in my entire life. Again, I don't know if that's written or the way it was played. I mean, I'm all for teenage angst, but there's a little bit too much, you know? But yeah, in terms of the acting, I don't think it was disappointing. I mean, again, like these two, I don't think Jamie Foxx or Cameron Diaz are like in your movie, Kieran Culkin level acting, one of our finest.
They're movie stars. Like this goes back to our
right. They're Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Right. That's how I would describe Jamie Foxx and Cameron Diaz. Tom Cruise. Right. They're action stars. They're stars. Jamie Foxx was excellent in the most recent Spider-Man movie. He's been like there's a Collateral is a fantastic movie that Jamie Foxx is in. He's a great actor, but he's a performer movie star more so than like an actor's
thespian.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not to be demeaning. Cameron Diaz, I feel like, is the same. They both do their job in this movie, and they're not at all fault for the movie. They're one of the highlights, I would say. They keep it from a skip it. There you go. That's what
I find it so interesting about Netflix movies is that they're attracting these very big stars to what is equivalent to a direct to video movie. Like so many times I watch a Netflix movie and I'm like, you obviously have a huge budget. What's going on?
Cash money.
Sure.
So sometimes really big actors want to be involved in something like a hit TV show because they want the prestige, right? But a lot of actors will sometimes talk like, "Oh, I took on this project because the shooting schedule was so good." Like,
and I could see that with Jamie Foxx is recovering from a very debilitating illness. Cameron Diaz is easing back into working after having a child. I could see them being like, oh, that's attractive. It's a big price tag and it's we're going to have fun. I like Jamie. I like Cameron. We're going to have fun on set, whatever. It's just, the Netflix business model continues to baffle. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I don't quite understand where their money comes from still. But yeah, at the end of the day, like I think Back in Action is an Airplane It. I think it would be a fun thing to watch on an airplane to kill some time. And I do think if you enjoy action movies, like if that's your thing, especially if you enjoy like any of the movies we just like like Horrible Bosses even, or those kinds of like, I can't even think, like Identity Theft and all these like kind of action comedy movies. There's enough comedy in it that I feel like people would get enough out of it. So yeah, I think it's an Airplane It for me. It's just, to me, it doesn't become a Stream It because I just didn't enjoy it as much as I'm sure some other people would. So it's definitely not a skip it though.
Another movie that fits in that genre, and I'm gonna forget it. Mila Kunis was in it, and her ex-boyfriend turns out to be like a CIA agent. That movie was a lot of fun. That genre.
You're dating something. Yeah, because that was
my ex is my ex agent. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I that was a fun movie. Like that
genre.
That was like the better version of this for sure. Yeah. So there you go. Back in action. Airplane It.
My movie was very different.
I hope so.
Interestingly, I found out near the end from the credits, Jesse Eisenberg directed and wrote this movie and stars.
And a Taylor no.
And I thought, oh, why does Jesse Eisenberg get two of the best monologues in this movie? And then, guess who directed and wrote? Jesse Eisenberg. Of course, he would give himself the two best monologues.
Well, that's a big strike for Taylor.
Yeah, it is. But so this movie is a very Taylor movie. For longtime listeners will know that I was extremely close to my Baba, which is my maternal grandmother who passed away in 2019, and she was a Russian immigrant. So I like movies that sort of deal with grandmas. I like movies with grandmas, and I like movies especially where there's sort of a second or third generation immigrant story. So I would be a second generation because my mom's first generation. So yeah, so I think I'm a second or third. So anyways, I like that sort of dynamic where you have typically it's a maternal grandmother or a paternal grandmother. She kind of is, even if she's not a main character in the story, that kind of that immigrant story like shapes the narrative. I'm very interested in that because of my own personal life story. So this movie is about two cousins played by Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin, and which is of course Macaulay Culkin's brother, who's become much more famous than Macaulay Culkin.
Well, I mean,
in my mind,
as I said, one of I think our finest actors right now is
he's very talented. So, they play cousins, and their grandmother has passed away. Like within the year, but it's been like several months since her passing. And she left money for them to go to Poland to see essentially where she lived. So Jesse Eisenberg, of course, I mean, he plays to his strengths. He knows what his strengths are. He plays like the uptight, neurotic cousin. And then Kieran Culkin plays the kind of bohemian, very charming, but also very obnoxious cousin. And essentially it's like a buddy, it's being described as a buddy road comedy drama. And so Jesse Eisenberg's character books them a Holocaust tour, and then they're gonna like leave the tour early to like go to their grandmother's house.
Oh, so it's Jesse Eisenberg's character who books this tour.
Yes, because he's like the organized cousin,
right,
the responsible cousin.
Gotcha.
And so it's a very tight movie. It's an hour and a half. And essentially you see them join this Holocaust tour, and they kind of go through the Holocaust tour, and you see the dynamic of the cousins, but also it's very interesting to see their dynamic within a group. So Kieran Culkin plays like I said, he's very, very charming, but also very obnoxious. And I think most people know someone like him. And so like you have this like, what's that word? It's that German word, like secondhand embarrassment. But like you feel Jesse Eisenberg's character's discomfort. Like, you know, when you like are with a family member or a friend and they're being kind of obnoxious, and like you see how the group is responding to it, but the person who's being obnoxious is oblivious to it. So like a lot of the tension but also comedy comes from that. So, and Kieran Culkin does it so well. Like he's able to like switch this flip between being so charming and like walking that fine line between like, ooh, like how's the group going to react to this? Like, are they going to be open to it? Are they going to be like embarrassed by it? So anyways, he, as far as I know, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, he won the Golden Globe for best actor, best comedy or drama, because they separate their, anyways, doesn't matter. So he won best actor, and he probably assume is going to be nominated for an Oscar.
Because I think he won Best Supporting, which is
okay.
Because they're weird because they don't. The supporting is all in one, but the best like lead is separated by comedy and drama, whereas the supporting is all one. The Golden Globes are weird.
This is one of those movies where you could make the argument that Jesse Eisenberg is the lead of this movie, but I really feel like they're co-leads. But I
Well, and
understand.
remember, they submit, right? So,
Yeah.
like, the movie, the producers might be saying, like, let's submit Kieran Culkin as supporting because he has a better chance.
Yeah, I get
Like,
that.
that
So,
happens all the time.
it's definitely there's funny parts, there's some really sad parts. I don't think it's so funny. It's like last week where I'm like, I don't think this movie is for everyone. I think this movie is more accessible. What movie did I review last week? Anora. This movie is certainly more accessible than Anora, but I don't think an average moviegoer would be like, yeah, let's watch a buddy comedy about a Holocaust tour. Like that. Right. That's not really. But all that being said, I really enjoyed this movie. I think that the direction was very good. Like, I was actually surprised to know that Jesse Eisenberg directed this, but I don't think this is his first foray into directing.
No.
I think you even might have reviewed one of his movies last year.
Yeah,
so
I'm pretty sure he's directed at least a handful of things.
I thought the directing was good. I thought the writing was good. I did think that the monologues, because I'm of two minds. I think, and you come from a different world, Mike, so you might feel differently. I feel like monologues, a good monologue shouldn't feel like, oh, I'm listening to a monologue. You know what I mean? Like, it should just kind of blend seamlessly into the dialogue. But maybe I'm crazy. Maybe you are supposed to stop and be like, wow, that was a really beautifully delivered monologue. So I don't know if it was because I thought it was very beautiful. Like, the monologues were beautiful, but I felt like, wow, I'm really watching someone deliver a monologue. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, certainly on stage, what you're describing would be how it goes. I mean, I'm less
like, stop everything.
Yeah,
stop everything and watch this person perform. And I wonder if Jesse Eisenberg maybe just isn't a strong enough actor to pull off that kind of high drama, or it just is like, I'm just reacting to monologues and all monologues are like that, and I'm just kind of like, that's, that doesn't fit in a movie. I don't know, that might be, so that would be kind of my major complaint, was that it felt, and then like I said, when I watched the credits, and I'm like, oh, that's why he delivered those. Because Kieran Culkin doesn't have an extended monologue at all in the movie. Like, it's the rest of I guess what I'm used to, Mike, is I like things a little bit more naturalistic when I watch movies, in a sense, and I prefer dialogue, right? So it might just be that I'm reacting to the fact that this was like a huge chunk of dialogue, and in real life, it's very rare for someone to deliver like a chunk of dialogue without someone like naturally interrupting. Do you know what I'm trying to describe? Like, it felt like the movie was so natural and like the dialogue made sense, and then all of a sudden pause, and Jesse Eisenberg's going to deliver like a 3-minute, and it probably wasn't even 3 minutes. I don't know. So that's my biggest gripe about this movie. But overall, I think it was also like very beautifully shot, which I think is shocking that it was directed by Jesse Eisenberg, just because I don't think of him as a director. I think there was very beautiful cinematography, and you really get to see Poland. And again, I'm very invested in Eastern Europe. That's like, you had me at invested is the name of this. Emotionally invested is the name of this episode. I'm very emotionally invested in Eastern Europe, and so being able to see shots of Poland in that way, I think was, you don't often see that in Western cinema. So that was very nice and refreshing for me. So for me, this is a see it. Again, the subject matter probably isn't for everyone. I don't also know if the average moviegoer will find the humor in it. Maybe they will. I don't know. But overall, I think this is a see it for me. And I think it's also one to keep an eye on because of award season.
And the nominations for the Oscars are coming out soon.
Ooh.
We're supposed to have those very, very soon, I believe. I had seen somewhere January 19th, but I don't know if that might have been the final deadline to get your nominations in by, also, because they announced that date too, and then they like within a week like turn it around.
But that might have been an old date, because I read also that they were going to delay the nomination announcements because of the wildfires.
Yeah.
So maybe that was an old date.
I could see this being an early February kind of thing, you know, where they early into February they make the announcement. Yeah, I could see that. So we'll see what happens when we get there. Quickly before we go, Taylor, another just really, really sad thing to kind of end the show on, but I feel like we got to at least talk about it, is the passing of David Lynch.
Yes.
The film director, much, I would say, talked about film director on this show. And I would say a lot of his films kind of hit and miss, depending upon who you are. A lot of people love the TV series Twin Peaks.
Yep, I'm one of them.
He directed Dune in the 80s, which is a pretty interesting movie. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to bring up that he kind of passed away suddenly last week. And it came as a bit of a shock to a lot of people. So yeah, I just wanted to take a moment to kind of to kind of say that this happened, if anyone listening doesn't know. But also I think it's good every once in a while to recognize when filmmakers who have an impact, or even creators in the film industry in any way, actors, directors, producers, et cetera, have an impact to kind of address when they pass away. Because, love him or hate him, he had an impact on cinema.
The tributes I'm reading, overall, he just seems beloved. Like, he must have been just like a stand-up guy to work with, because I haven't seen, not that like when people die, people are come out of the woodwork to be like, but just the tributes have been very glowing and very heartfelt. And I think, again, love or hate his films, he was just such an interesting and I think the word we could use is like singular. Like, he had such a vision and was uncompromising, but he also, he seemed like a really nice guy, like wholesome, like, so, of course now I say that, and 3 weeks from now we're going to hear a horrible thing about him. But overall, I would say, he just has he had a really great reputation. His movies were, again, sometimes polarizing, but you can't deny he had a vision for them, and he really stuck to his guns. And I don't think you don't see that type of movie anymore, or
less so,
at least commercially. The fact that he was able to essentially work as a commercial director, even though he was more of an art house auteur director, is pretty rare. And I don't think, now that everything's about bottom line and making, maximizing profits and stuff, you really don't see the David Lynch's very much. So anyways, yes, very sad. He had emphysema in his last years, so that's why he had a decline in his career. He was housebound due to emphysema, and it felt sudden, because you didn't really hear about him being sick. So R.I.P. David Lynch. Mike, we have just a tiny bit of time left. Do you want to do one fan question to end on a cheery note?
Let's save them for next week, because I feel as though, yes, we're like a little short this week. All the fan questions will take us more than 5 or 6 minutes.
It would take us a whole episode.
Almost. Some of them are quite deep. So we'll definitely get to these fan questions next week. So we'll do that. But yeah, we'll end it there for this week. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and you'll hear from us next week.
Go see some movies.
Thank you for listening to You Had Me at Skip It, a Soul One Arts Inc. podcast. This podcast is produced by Mike Shepard and Austin Spinner Summer. It is a project of Soul One Arts Inc. To learn more about Soul One and all the great work that Soul One is doing in the arts community, especially in film, theater, and other performing arts, visit soul1arts.ca. You can contribute to this podcast by visiting soul1arts.ca and going to the podcast tab. You'll find all the information on You Had Me at Skip It and how you can get your questions read on air each week. Thank you again for listening.